Hello, and welcome back to Game Brigade. I'm your host, Brian Greer, and on this show, we do reviews, previews, playthroughs, and have conversations about our favorite board games. So if you're new here, please consider hitting the subscribe button and joining the Game Brigade community. Today on the show, we're taking a look at the small box game Kawa, a game about flow. How much content can we get out of a small box game? Well, let's dive right in and find out. Opening up the box, it's greatly appreciated to see how well everything is contained. Inside you will find your tokens, your player aids, and all of the cards necessary to play. The tokens are of good sturdy quality, and you have plenty of tokens here for every player, as well as additional components for alternate forms of play. In the game of Kawa, players will be trying to score as many points as they can in a 4-round game. In the game of Kawa, players will then set up on the player board here with the lily pad, which is the player order. In a random decision, we will have players starting in the 1 position, and in this 2-player game, they would position in the 3rd position. In a 4-player game, each position will be filled. Then, in player order, players will assign their location on the river pad. The yellow player places first, and then the red player. The yellow player then will swap 2 different tiles that are conjoining. Then the red player may swap 2 tiles. After every player has assigned their player tokens and where they wish to play, the game of flow can then begin. And flowing is actually the most enjoyable part about this game. So in reverse player order now, starting with the 3rd place player, they'll begin to flow down the river, placing their player tokens in their appropriate selections. So how do you do that? Based on the river tile, you will notice that there is a current on the card. This is the indication that tells you where your river is currently flowing based on where you're at. So for example, this red player would go here, flowing up to this river, flowing over to this river, and then they'd be hitting the special tile, the whirlpool. After they have entered the whirlpool tile and completed their flow, they'll actually pick up the whirlpool and assign it a new position. The yellow player will then flow across their river following the same rules. Once every player has finished flowing, they'll reference the round marker, and in the top corner will tell you how many petals you need to return back to your supply. So for this round, player 3 will have to return 1 petal, so they'll choose, say, this one. And then player 1 will have to return 3, so they will choose these 3. Then the river at the end here is removed. Any petals that were remaining on those tiles are also discarded. And then signifying the movement of the river, these tiles will slide down. Players will then take those additional new tiles, shuffle them up, and place them back on the player board, ensuring that the corners have the proper symbol in the top. Once the new row has been assigned, players will then reference the player sheet here and then make sure they swap tiles following the order. Position 4 will actually swap 2 tiles. So players are in position, and player 4 will then switch 2 tiles. Notice the player can switch any tile they wish as long as they are conjoining. Then player 1 will switch theirs. Then players begin to flow. In this situation, again, player 4 will flow. In this example, the red player went over multiple different places where he already had flower petals, and this is how a player scores points. Each time a player goes over a flower petal, if it's their own or another player's, whoever flower petal has gone over will score points. So in this example, the red player will score 2 points because of the double petal, another point, and another point, scoring a total of 4 points. The yellow player would then begin to flow. At the end of the yellow player's turn, they also went over 2 petals for the red player, scoring the red player an additional 4 points. This round of play will continue until each player has gone around the lily pad and the 4th round completes. The game ends once your token would reach back to its starting position on the lily pad. In this example, position 1 and 3. So that's the game of Kawa in a nutshell, but let's break down what I think about this game. Kawa has a ton of decision points as you rotate different tiles and try to plan around the current board state. Each tile will make a decision change, and as you rotating tiles, it's going to change your future plans, leaving players in a situation where they're constantly going to have to be on their feet, deciding what's the best plan for them going forward. There are a lot of different tiles that affect the flow of the river. Not only do the whirlpools rotate when you go over, there's a lot of different types of basic tiles and advanced tiles that players can alternate to change the landscape or bring a different challenging path to the game. In those tiles, there are 9 different tiles, some of them such as the abandoned katana, the catfish, the dragon orb, all change the landscape. For example, the katana, when gone over, will have players having the petals split in half as if the katana has sliced the petal in 2, allowing players to play points in 2 different directions. The dragon orb allows players that when they go over a whirlpool to swap that whirlpool with additional tiles also on the map. There's a ton of variety. Now the basic tiles probably are more simplistic as the advanced tiles have more complex rules, but they do add that offer of replayability in the game. End of scoring petals removing is also going to be big in terms of types of strategy you want to implement. As I mentioned, the removal of the 4th row occurs every time, and at the end of each round, players will be removing petals based on their position on the lily pad. So if you're in first position, you're removing 3 petals, second position, you're removing 2, and third position, you're removing 1. So with that, there are a lot of strategies you can implement. Knowing that you're going to be removing the 4th row, you can decide, well, maybe I'm just going to take all the ones that are removed for free off the 4th row. That way I don't lose any ground that I've already established on the board. But what if you don't like the position that you've had? Instead of removing the ones on the 4th row that will get removed automatically, you could choose to remove ones earlier in the pool, then have more come back towards you by having also the 4th row removed. This would effectively bring more to your supply so that you can make better decisions or plans going forward in the game. There's a lot of different strategy paths that you can do, and I like that the way this game is made implements those strategies well. But unfortunately, that kind of wraps up what are the pros of Kawa. There's a lot of cons with Kawa. And it's unfortunate that a game that has so much going for it has so much holding it down. The alternate tiles, unfortunately, are also its downfall. The alternative tiles, unfortunately, become boring and repetitive, and the only challenge that you get out of them is playing the advanced tiles. And after so many plays, those advanced tiles lose their luster, and you realize they're not as entertaining or fun as they once were. The enjoyment or the allure of playing with the sword as it splits the petals, you realize how broken it is and how manipulated you can use to score a massive amount of points with it. At some point you want to stop playing with them because you're having such large point swings, and maybe we just play with the basic game and go from there. Again, it sucks that the biggest enjoyment that I thought I would get out of Kawa with the 9 additional tiles kind of holds it back. For such a small and simple game, it's really unfortunate that the rulebook is so awful. It's almost like reading a college thesis. They're using jargon and words that are too big for the type of game it is, and really hurts the idea of what Kawa is attempting to be, a game of relaxation and contemplation. This does not make me want to relax or have any type of contemplation. I just want to bang my head against the wall. Why is there no player aids to help me with the turn structure? How come the boards don't tell me anything? There shouldn't be a reason why a player needs to go online to watch a how to play video because the rule book is so convoluted. I understand that maybe they had some translation issues or there's some sort of issues going on with the writing, but this is unacceptable, especially for a game this small and this simple. The player point system, which I pointed out earlier in the game, is double-sided. Each player can go up to 18 points or more if they score that, and that is the problem. Every game we played, we had players scoring double or even triple the amount of points as other players in the game. It's unfortunate that the position that you start this game in will vastly determine the amount of points that you can score, but we'll get into that more later. The 18-point score tracker with scoring 18 points per game is easily attainable. Why are you limiting me to only 18 points? Why not allow us to have more points? And how come the rule book doesn't tell me how many points I can go to? Is 18 the max? How come when we have so many point salads, are you limiting me to so few on the point track scoring sheet? It doesn't make sense. But let's go back to what I was mentioning about the player order. The turn order, reverse turn order, is punishing the players who start early and in low levels. For example, the first player is going to be positioned first, but they're going to go down the river last. So why does that hurt? Every player that goes first, one, is not scoring points for other players, but they're also positioning themselves on the board so that they can be scored upon by players coming later. Now, the game tries to change this by saying, well, all players are going to be going first at some point. But by going first, there's a big difference in that because you can establish your board early and get a massive point score, and it's going to be hard for players to catch up later. I don't know why they chose to do this system. It completely breaks the game. And especially when the first player has to remove 3 tiles from the board, not only are you going first, you're also having to remove all of the effort that you did to get started. So you don't even have a board to go with when other people start flowing down when you go later. It doesn't make any logical sense. And it's the biggest reason why I cannot recommend this game to many of my friends. The point scoring system and the way the game flows doesn't work for me, and I don't think it works for many other people. My first several plays of Flow were enjoyable, but they were quick and lighthearted games. But the more you play the game and the more you see the breakdown of the system and the way it works and the imbalancing in the amount of points that you can get and how these tiles don't add enough depth to the game, it just becomes unfun. And I could see that this game has potential, and I like that it's trying something new in an industry that is very easily a repeated system where companies copy the same motives or the same ideals. It's nice to see a company try something new. And I hate having to be the guy that says not good enough, but unfortunately this isn't quite there yet. If I were to rate this game right now after my several plays, I would give this a 5.1. And I would say that was very generous. It was really hard for me to balance between like a 4.8 or a 5.1. And the reason I'm going with a 5.1, it's an average game. It's okay. There is potential here, and I could see with some rule rewrites or some erratas to some of the additional rules right now in the game that there could be something here that's enjoyable. Having a small box game that can be this much depth is hard to find. Being able to take this with you wherever you go, if you're going camping or to the park, it's great to have something that's that enjoyable. There just needs to be a tweak somewhere in the rules to make this game what it needs to be and what it deserves to be. A 5.1 is my score. I would give it higher if I felt like it justified it. I just don't think it does. So that is my review of Kawa. Again, I thank everyone for staying till the end and watching the show. If you want to support the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the Game Brigade community. Make sure you check the links down below. We always have links down there, as well as the Patreon link. The Patreon is what keeps me going, and I appreciate all the generous donations you guys have given to the show. Again, thank you so much, and I will talk to you all very soon.